Good evening, it's 6:45, and we'll call the April 10th Cedar Springs Public School Board meeting to order. And if everyone would rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag. Thank you. And if you have a roll call, please.
Yes. Trustee Bowser.
Here.
Trustee Patton.
Here.
Trustee Vanderhyde.
Here.
Treasurer Gilmore.
Here.
Secretary Slager. Here. Vice President Schaffner.
Here.
President Reed.
Here. Thank you, and we've established a quorum. And that brings us to the adoption of the agenda, and I would entertain a motion for as presented.
So moved.
Support. Any discussion? Having none. Vice President Schaffner,
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderhyde,
Yes.
Trustee Patton,
Yes.
Trustee Bowser,
Yes.
President Reed, yes, the agenda is adopted as presented. That brings us to gratitude, and I've opened it up to the floor to who would like to share.
I have a gratitude. I went to the high school just before spring break to sign Emily up for ortho, and we have a new security system where you have to buzz, and Tara has the buzzer and everything. And I just want to say I really appreciate that, and I just really hope that we will continue to be very, very proactive and being security driven, especially in light of what happened. You know, I think the federal government should pay for it, but besides that, I appreciate the fact that we're really taking the initiative.
First-hand experience.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
I am grateful for our theater program. Got to enjoy, your great man, Charlie Brown, and it was super fun. And both of my kids that are still in school were in it, and I went to every single one of them, and I enjoyed all of them. I'm glad we have a theater department.
I'm grateful for fun opportunities for our students, such as the dub that happened before spring break. Having two high schoolers be a part of it, and then, you know, just having a lot of community feedback and from family and friends from all over. Just a lot of, I think just doing some of those fun things really creates the kind of climate and culture that we want in our school. So I'm thankful for that opportunity.
I'm grateful for the weather, sorry.
No, go for it.
The weather to come back from spring break as we get back to classes and starting spring sports and spring everything.
I was gonna echo Tracy's. I got to watch that this morning, the lift up, and it was very entertaining. So
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback on Shannon's comments. We went to the show on Sunday afternoon, and it was a nice size audience in the house. I mean, it was a good sized group of people there supporting our students. So it was a good, a neat opportunity to celebrate and showcase some talent. And then I also just got some information regarding our Pine Rest usage report for our Red Hawks Care program that I thought would be nice to share with you. So since September, they provided our students with over 100 counseling sessions. And to date, we've referred 48 students to Arbor Circle for additional supports and services. For the most part, these are all students that did not have access to that kind of support before. And so it's just refreshing to see, we've got a resource for students and families to use and using it, which is a positive thing. And I'm just thankful that our spring breaks behind us. People got back in timely manner for the most part, and well, it's going to move quickly from here till the end of the year. So hold on.
Thank you. All right, next we have our high school representative to share what's going on there, and it's Emily Mayer.
Good evening. I am a senior and class president, if I've already done it. So So for the past, in March, we had the talent show, March is Charity Month, and I'm going to also discuss a little bit from. So for the talent show, we had a great attendance. We had around 125 people. We made around $300-ish. We had first and second place. The first place was a band, and the second place was a clowning act. Both of these acts will be performing for the rest of the school at an assembly to showcase some of our students who are pursuing their true personal best. For March's Charity Month, we did City Impact, and differing from past years, we had everyone donate to just one charity, rather than each grade pick a charity, and those grades donate to only that charity. We actually got more donations doing it this way than we did in previous years. I will actually be personally dropping off those donations on Thursday to City Impact. Tons of boxes. We had lots of canned goods and non-perishables that were brought in. I believe the sophomores won. So that turned out really well. We're very pleased with that. And then prom, I have personally been helping with the junior council through the planning because they needed a bit of a push to get started. They didn't quite know what they were doing because we don't have a good system yet. And I'm hoping to actually make a better binder for the junior council since prom is such a big dance at our high school. And so we've got all of our checklist completed except for decorations, and they are actually met before spring break to discuss decorations. It'll be just centerpieces. And so we've been selling tickets, and so far we have up to 100, a little less than 180 tickets. And like most students, there's probably gonna be a big rush on the last day. So you'll probably be seeing an increase in those numbers, but I'm happy with the numbers so far. We actually did something different. This year, the junior council decided to have two prices. So before spring break, they did $30 per ticket. And then after spring break, starting today, we upped it to 35 tickets. That did not get as many students as we hoped to buy tickets early. So we're hoping that if we keep doing that, they'll actually start buying tickets early. It's really nice for the council to have all those numbers in earlier than the date of the prom. Prom is on April 28th at the Federal Center. And I hope all of you got your invitations. So, hope to see you there.
We did, or I did, at least.
And that will be all for me. Any questions? What's the theme this year? Enchanted Forest. Junior council are very proud of that. So. Anyone else? All right.
Thanks for all that leadership.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
All right, moving on with the meeting, consent items, I would entertain a motion for as presented.
So moved.
Support. Any discussion? Having none? Trustee Bowser,
Yes.
trustee Patton,
Yes.
trustee Vanderhyde,
Yes.
trustee Treasurer Gilmore,
Yes.
secretary Slager,
Yes.
vice president Schaffner,
Yes,
president Reed, yes, consent items are approved as presented. Moving on to discussion, we have our financial update with Lonnie Sullivan.
All right, I think I must stay here for this presentation. I've uploaded the finance report, includes the usual year-to-date budget as of March 31st, 2023 for the general fund, as well as the bond budget update. Next month, you will start seeing the Series 2 as well as the Series 1 represented on that budget. Big thing I wanted to highlight, last month we discussed, I was meeting with Brian Quinn from PFM regarding the investment of proceeds with the Myloff Fund. He would put together a projected earnings for us based on the cash flow and estimated draw schedule. I've included a copy of that presentation in board book, but you know, the key part of it right now, as of about 2 weeks ago, he was projecting an estimated net earnings of slightly over $2.5 million on those proceeds. The net amount that we get to use, so that's 2.5 million that we can use towards our bond project. But there is a caveat related to arbitrage. So essentially that is the difference between the coupon rate that we pay out to the bondholders versus the rate of investment return that we're receiving. The IRS, if you, let's say the coupon is 4% and we're earning 4.25%, that 0.25% is positive arbitrage. If you don't spend the bond proceeds in a set time, hit certain milestones, there's a possibility that you will have to essentially pay back some of those proceeds to the IRS. It is quite very likely we will have a positive arbitrage situation at the end of the bond project, so we will have to remit a portion of that $2.5 million back to the IRS, or to the IRS. So that's something we'll want to plan on. PFM monitors that and does the calculation. It's a very complex calculation, but any way you slice it, the 2.5 would be a very positive earnings and return on those proceeds that we can utilize for additional existing bond projects. And obviously 4 years ago when the original budget was put together, pricing has changed some since then. So this should allow us to continue to move forward as planned.
Out of that 2.5, do you have a guess of what that might be that we would have to get back? I mean, it's not like half of it. It's
No, I wouldn't be
It's a
happy.
small percentage, I'm
It's
assuming.
that difference
Okay.
between the coupon rate. So if
Yeah.
the coupon rate is 4%, we can earn 4%.
okay,
So it's that
0.25 kind of thing.
It's that
Gotcha.
difference between what we're paying out and what we're earning.
Sure.
So, I did, I asked Brian about kind of the SPB, and if there were some concerns about that. My law is not FDIC insured, but based on what Brian said, the fund has never had a credit loss. So essentially, they never lost any of their principal due to investing. They, pull some facts for you. So the pool is rated by S&P, so they have a AAA-M rating, which essentially means scroll this one down. They are investing in accordance with the instruments that are authorized by the school code of the state of Michigan. Investing in securities such as U.S. government securities, money market mutual funds, corporate bonds, repurchase agreements, and other short-term instruments such as negotiable CDs. So they're not investing anything very far out.
So they're being as safe as
They are being as safe as they
Sure.
can. Correct. I haven't confirmed this, but Brian mentioned like Rockford just moved all of their money. They do offer like a checking account function, so you can issue your account payable checks right out of mine. It might be something we could take a look at, is the difference in the interest is right now about 1%. So it's 1% on $10 million. But that'd be a nice increase to any investment income your district would then utilize for general fund operations, and there would be no arbitrage calculation on general fund investments.
Any other questions or thoughts?
So you said they're AAA rated. How long has that fund been established?
I want to say that the MyLoft is 40 or 50 years old. This pamphlet that I'm looking at says pools rated since November of '97.
Okay. Thank you.
You got through a much.
Yes.
If you did, okay, I didn't want to cut you.
Well, I guess final thing of note is just related to prevailing wage implications for school districts. Last month, Governor Whitmer did pass a law related to prevailing wage. Prevailing wages, so essentially, any government-funded construction projects have to pay the going union rate in their location. But there was some wording in that law that essentially exempts bonds that have already been passed for school districts. So we should not be, we should not have to follow that law at this time because our bond was passed in 2019. So that is good news for us. That will help us, do more with the dollars that we have.
And help us stay closer to budget, which is a positive.
All right. We'll move on to Region Emergency Response Coordinator position.
So, back in November of 2022, there was, a communication shared by former members of the Oxford, Michigan, or Oxford Public Schools Board of Education, in regard to the district's emergency response and the training that was provided and the communication that was shared with the Board of Education. And for me, it was yet another stark reality that the stakes related to school security and student and staff and guest safety on campus have never been greater, and that the vast majority of districts are just don't have the expertise on hand to coordinate their emergency response actions. And that's just reality. I've never had a class in school safety. I've never studied school safety. I've attended webinars. I've been a part of councils through Michigan State Police. I've engaged in the work of providing safe and secure campuses for our students and staff for, over 30 years, but I feel very under qualified to lead this work. And, there are experts out there in the work around providing safety and security recommendations and protocols for organizations like ours. But I didn't see it as being a full-time position for our district. But I did see it as a pretty neat opportunity for us to partner with some neighboring districts if they were too inclined to move forward with this, to create a partnership and bring an expert in the area of school or in security on board. And so I reached out to the Region 1 superintendents at a Region 1 superintendent meeting back in early January, and I said, I've got a crazy idea. What do you think about this? And Kent City, Sparta, Comstock Park, Kennel Hills, and Northview all were interested in pursuing the concept. Rockford has their own security team, and so they didn't have the same level of need that the other districts had. So over the course of January into February, moving into March, we've been working on developing a position profile for Region 1 school emergency response coordinator and security advisor. And so as we furthered the conversation, we included members of the team from the Kent ISD. They have a retired, former FBI chief for West Michigan as a part of their team. And, so we, we started bringing Sean Burns into our conversations just to help advise our thinking in terms of what we wanted to do with this position. And so after many edits on the job description, we have identified a job description for the position. And we're in a place now where the Kent ISD is going to be asking their board to approve the hiring of this position at their April 17 board meeting. So the individual hired would basically oversee the emergency response coordination for Cedar Springs Public Schools, Kent City, Sparta, Comstock Park, Kennel Hills, and Northview. And then they would also have access to resources through the Kent ISD that will again help us, the districts in Region 1, provide a coordinated response in the event of an emergency. So the job description kind of spells out some of the key activities that this individual will be responsible for. But really at the district level, what we see this person doing for us is coming in and leading our emergency response, our monthly emergency response meetings, making sure that our all of our emergency response documentation is thoroughly up to date and present in all the key locations throughout the district, making sure that all of our signage is in place and visible for guests, students, and staff when they're on campus. Coordinating all of the training, providing a great deal of the training for our staff around emergency response, partnering with other agencies within the region and within the state to make sure that our practices are considered best practices in the area of emergency response and security, school security. And so we're really excited about the opportunity. We couldn't do this by ourselves, but we definitely can do some profound things by joining with other districts in the community. Some additional things that we see as being valuable is to create a regional emergency response team so that if there is an event or an emergency that needs support in Sparta, for example, members of our team, Northview's team, Kennel's team, Kent City's team could go to Sparta, help manage the emergency response so that the administrative team and the team members at Sparta could help the people manage that response, because those are two different things. And so we're just really excited to see where this goes. And I wanted to put it out there in front of you so that you can see some of the growth that's out there. But we are not prepared right now. We're as best we can, but this will help us get better. That's for sure.
Is this a position that we would pay Kent ISD to become a part of, or are we splitting the salary, or how does that
Yeah,
work?
so thank you. Each member district will pay $15,000 for the year, and then the Kent ISD will pick up the remaining portion of the cost of the position. And so, basically, and it's a 210-day position, I think, or 215-day position. A couple of those numbers have changed over the last couple of weeks to make the position more attractive, but basically we're buying 1/6 of a staff member, which would, mean each district will have, 4 to 5 days of in-person service per month from this individual to be able to coordinate communication, to coordinate again, all the signage, all the documentation to do the training, that type of thing. And the other neat thing that we see as being beneficial is this person will be able to see the best practices in Catalog and the best practices in Northview, and we'll be able to share those best practices within the region. And then another thing that we're really excited about is, in the event that there would be an emergency response, in northern Kent County, any law enforcement agencies would know that the protocols and plans in Cedar Springs are the same protocols and plans that are in Northview, and the same plans in Kent City, same plans in Sparta. So we see some benefit to having some continuity from district to district as far as those first responders go.
I really like the creative, problem solving and the share, I think the shared position makes a lot of sense given the cost and as you said, just not every district is as prepared as other districts and has different amounts of resources, and I think we're probably sitting better than some of the other ones, but realistically, you just can't put enough emphasis on safety and security, so I like what I see here.
I do too, and I appreciate being proactive instead of reactive. Nobody wants it to happen, but today's world is very unpredictable, so I do appreciate that, and things are really good.
I wonder if there's any grants or programs that helps something like this.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, again, we don't have that. We apply for the Michigan State Police grant annually, so there are dollars out there. This type of leveraging this type of position across multiple districts will make it very attractive to individuals because they know a dollar invested is going to help many more communities.
And maybe the section 98C's safety grant might be something that this is eligible to charge to that grant. But whether or not that's a going grant, we can't predict that, but it should be at least a 2-year.
That would be nice to, help accommodate that cost, since we're looking at some negatives coming in the future.
And, this position is in no way meant to, we've got a great partnership with the Kent County Sheriff's Department and districts and our school resource officers. Those individuals are incredibly gifted and incredibly talented. This position will help coordinate and help support that work so that we can lift that group to be able to do even more things, and also free them to be able to focus on, providing other measures of security rather than, also having to, in many cases, the school resource officer is the individual who is, leading this emergency response plan, or it's a principal, or it's, a member of the district leadership team that's been assigned to that task. So just that measure of expertise will really be seen as a bright spot.
So the hierarchy of the position, let's say there's a disagreement of how something was to be handled. And it's good for Cedar Springs, but it might not work for somebody else. How do you foresee that?
The position will be accountable to the superintendents. And so, there's an opportunity to have uniformity across the board, but it's not a requirement. So if something is unique to us that works well because of our configuration, then, we won't have to give that up in order to be a part of the partnership. The individual will recognize each district has unique elements based on geographic location or configuration of the campus or, proximity to other resources. Yeah.
It's not a one size fits
No.
all plan. It's
No.
just everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like it, and I think that question helped me. I was wondering, this is gonna be basically like a an expert consultant that would help us get better and provide more security, but we're not losing control of our program. If our security team felt we had the resources and the ability to do something above and beyond some of these other districts, it wouldn't hold us back.
Correct.
Perfect, yeah, excellent.
Have you seen this model anywhere else, or?
Right in there. And that was one of the things in a meeting with Sean Burns and a couple of members of the ISD team. He said, wow, this could really be the model that districts across the state could use to really move this.
It's kind of
this forward.
unique. I haven't heard of it in Michigan for sure. I don't know about nationally, and I would hope someone's doing something similar, but if we're the very first, that's great.
It's easy for big districts
Sure.
to do something like this. It's impossible for small districts. Unless you work together. We were also mindful of, we didn't want the demands to be too great on the position. And that's something we'll be thoughtful of moving forward, but, we all have basically the same, we all have the same basic vehicle for emergency response. And so because of that continuity, that will, to me, lessen the degree of variability for the individual in the position. It may take some time to help bring about more levels of uniformity, but I think right out of the gate, the work is going to be similar enough from district to district that it's definitely going to be a doable position. Not easy, but doable.
When it comes to the safety of the kids, though, being the first district to do it or the first region to do it, it's the right thing.
And sharing ideas.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
Good things. Right. Next up, we have superintendent evaluation. And we have before us in the board book our documents, our instrument that we're prescribed to use or that we've agreed to use. And Scott's filled out his self-evaluation, and this is a first read for us. So typically the first read, we just put it out there. And everybody keeps reading and thinking and digesting. And with all of the many attachments, thank you for providing those with different information. We'll be seeing this on a future agenda and have more discussion. And typically, we've not gone into closed session. Scott has chosen to keep this in open session, so that's how we work with that. So I expect this year we'll go forward the same.
Yeah, I just wanted to, the first two attachments, you'll see the overview from MASB on this evaluation process of the superintendency. The second attachment is the overall instrument that they use or that we use to reflect on the work that I'm doing. The third attachment then is my self-reflection. So as I go through, I look at the rubric that they provide and identify where I see myself falling. I'll be providing you with additional artifacts to support those positions. I've provided you with narrative with some examples of why my work aligns with a particular area of the rubric. But I'll provide you with some additional artifacts here over the next couple of weeks for you to continue to consider. It's a large body of work. To put it all on your plate the day back from spring break didn't seem like that was a reasonable thing to do, but typically we don't start this conversation until June, and so I thought it gave us some light to get started in April, at least by looking at the framework and then moving forward from there. So we'll trickle some artifacts out for you to help support, and then this process is always about feedback, so, it's really about how, my self-reflection is one thing, but it's really about how you see the work, being done, that's most important.
Any questions? Thank you. Next discussion item is the North Kent Community Enrichment Bylaw revision.
Yeah, so thank you. The last item that we have is a set of proposed bylaw changes for North Kent Community Enrichment. The changes are very basic in nature. Once upon a time, the North Kent Community Enrichment Group was made up of a partnership between Algoma Township, Solon Township, the city of Cedar Springs, Portland Township, Cedar Springs Public Schools. And as we've evolved over time, the remaining partners within North Kent Community Enrichment are City of Cedar Springs, Algoma Township, Solon Township, and Cedar Springs Public Schools. And so the changes in the bylaws just reflect that change to the dynamics of the member parties supporting the organization. So there's no other real contextual changes to the bylaws, just eliminating names that are no longer being a part of the organization. So Nelson Township and Cortland Township are no longer paying into support North Kent Community Enrichment. Residents who live in Cortland and Nelson Township can still participate in North Kent Community Enrichment programming. They just pay a non-member fee, which is slightly higher than residents of Algoma, Solon, and the city of Cedar Springs. So, for example, the daddy-daughter dance that was a couple weeks ago, residents of Algoma, Solon, the city of Cedar Springs paid one rate to attend. Residents of other communities would pay a higher rate to attend the function. And the highlight, I asked for a red line copy, and what I got was PDF, and so I highlighted the changes in the PDF, so at least you can see the sections where Nelson Township and Portland Township, those two names of those organizations were removed.
Appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you. And this will be on for action next meeting, you're thinking?
Yeah. Yep.
Any questions? All right, next we have public comment, and this is the time that anyone could address the board for 3 minutes. If they have any concerns, we won't be talking about it now. We would have Superintendent Smith follow up. So do we have any takers for public comment? Going once, going twice. We'll close public comment. And we have no action items for this evening, and for communication for the Board of Education, we have everything on there. We have nothing else. So would there be any last communication?
I have no additional information to share.
Planning forward, our next meeting is May 8th, okay. And having no more business before the board, we'll stand adjourned at 7:24. Thank you.